Welcome to a tale woven with threads of danger, desire, and the supernatural. I'm AC Dawn, your narrator and author of Crystal Clear, a paranormal Halloween novella. I plan to release a chapter each day leading up to All Hallows Eve. Keep in mind, this isn't your typical professionally produced audiobook. It's a personal reading and a chance for you to hear the story as it echoes in the mind of its creator. If you're eager to leap ahead and hear the entire tale, you can follow me on my Ream subscription for free and gain instant access to the full recording. But for now, let us take our first steps into a world where ancient evil stirs and the fate of humanity hangs in the balance. Chapter 7. By the goddess, did you see her? She was 10 feet in the air. Her eyes were totally black. I've never seen the like. What did she mean? The Queen of the Damned rises where the living duel with death? Quiet, all of you! Jason's roar cut through the witch's chatter and made my head throb. I groaned and rolled into a ball, clutching my pounding head. Utter silence settled as I blinked my eyes open. My gaze traveled up from black boots, over black pants and shirt, to Jason's dark eyes staring intently down at me. My mother smoothed my hair back from my forehead, and Katie knelt next to me, clutching my hand in a death grip. Her smile didn't chase away the anxiety on her face. "Are you all right, Addie?" she asked and flicked a glance at the glowering vampire. Reality rolled over me like an avalanche as I remembered what I'd seen. "St. Mary's Hospital," I gasped and sat up, scrambling to my feet. Katie hurried to help me. I swayed as the world tilted and revolved around me. Jason was at my side in an instant, sliding his arm around my waist. Katie, despite her wide eyes full of fear, stood on my other side, murmuring a cross between words of comfort and prayers for protection. The entire coven gasped, and several witches traced wards in the air. From the ground, my mother stared open-mouthed at her daughter in the embrace of a vampire. "It's okay. He's not here to hurt anybody. Granny told me he was coming," I said. "He's the—" My mother pushed to her feet. A short woman of just over 5 feet, she barely came to Jason's chest. She glared up at him with the fury of a mother bear, and power radiated from her like a volcano ready to blow. Wow. I thought I'd seen her mad the time I hexed Jill Conroy to speak in gibberish. That was nothing compared to now. "I know you, Vampire King." My mother's voice rang through the clearing. Twin balls of swirling light formed in her hands. I stared as my grandmother joined her, handfuls of flame at the ready. Holy crap! They were like the witchy version of Thelma and Louise, laying it all on the line. I glanced at Katie, and she squeezed my hand before turning to stand shoulder to shoulder with my mother and grandmother. Energy pulsed around her as she too readied to fight for me, though no flames or light filled her hands. She wouldn't back down even though she didn't have much by way of firepower. Tears gathered in my eyes. Goddess protect them. The dangers of this night were only just beginning. "Mom, wait." I started to explain, but she ignored me, never breaking her staring competition with Jason. My mother continued in that eerie, resonating voice. "I call on you to honor your oath. You promised never to spill the blood of a witch. You'll release my daughter to me and go fulfill your destiny." Jason's grip tightened around my waist. "I pose no threat to Adelaide. However, she must stay with me until she finishes the prophecy." My mother blinked, her brows drawing down in confusion. My grandmother flicked an uncertain glance at my mother with the slightest shrug of her shoulder. "Wait, what?" "Finish the prophecy?" I asked, the unspoken question, but my words ended in a squeak. Jason swept me up in his arms and launched us into the air in one blindingly fast motion. A whoosh of fire and snapping energy barely missed us as we cleared the trees. Too surprised to even scream, I clung to Jason's neck and closed my eyes. In the next moment, we touched down with a jarring thud in an adjoining section of the graveyard. I squirmed and pushed against Jason's hold, but he didn't give an inch. "Wait, let me down." I shoved against his shoulder as he set off in a run. My heart pounded and all my joints ached like I'd run a marathon. Of course, I'd be dead if I ran a marathon, but I didn't feel much better than that at the moment. I tried again, desperate to get him to stop. "We have to talk to them. Tell them what's going on. They might be able to help us." I strained to hear any sounds of pursuit, but all I heard was the rushing wind as we made a mad dash toward the gates. "I do not need assistance to deal with Mariana, and I will let you down the moment you tell me the second half of the prophecy," Jason snapped. "Well, don't get snippy with me. I didn't even know there was something else to see." I continued my futile efforts to get free, though at the speed we were moving, I'd probably break my neck if I succeeded. "The current seer must tell me where to meet the next seer," Jason said as we hurtled through the cemetery, dodging headstones. He vaulted over the closed gates in a dizzying blur. "Does the legend not include that?" "The legend's a little sketchy on details." "Oh, goddess, set me down, I'm gonna be sick." I groaned and pushed against his shoulders. A sheen of sweat broke out on my forehead and my stomach churned. Jason stopped abruptly and put me down, but kept an iron grip on my arm. I pulled away, surprised when he let me go. Bracing my hands on my knees, I took deep breaths, fighting to keep my corndog from making a reappearance. "Enough with the jumping tall buildings in single bounds. You don't even have a cape," I said as I straightened up and started walking toward the hospital. "That is the second time you have mentioned my lack of a cape. Last time I walked the earth, they had gone out of favor. Are they stylish again?" Jason fell into step beside me. "Not for everyday wear." I laughed and felt a pang of regret. I liked this vampire. A lot. But, of course, he was unavailable on every level, which totally explained my attraction. We walked in silence, passing houses draped with Halloween decorations. All the porch lights were off, and trick-or-treaters had long since been tucked in their beds. I hoped they'd have a safe world to wake up to. "We must get to this hospital where Mariana is to rise." Impatience colored Jason's words. He moved to pick me up again, but I shied away, shaking my head. "I'm not getting back on that roller coaster. It's not far from here." Jason pressed his lips together, clearly annoyed at having to proceed at mere human speed. "Who was that woman in your memory? The one you called Your Highness?" Now that we knew where we needed to go, I couldn't stop thinking about that scene in the desert and the beautiful woman who wasn't Mariana. He sighed and stared as a car drove past us. He shook his head. "The automobile, I presume?" He glanced at me and I nodded. "They are much changed from last I saw them, but everything is so different." I waited, wondering if he was going to dodge the question entirely. "She was the human who taught me about humanity." Jason's voice lost its velvet tone and grew gritty with emotion. I glanced at him, recalling the bloodthirsty monster who'd emerged from the underworld. The creature next to me bore no resemblance to that mindless beast. It stood to reason that someone along the way had inspired that change. "I stole Jamila from the Pharaoh as a demonstration of my power," he continued. "I expected her to beg for her life, or for me to change her, for that is what humans always did. She did neither." I remembered the look of hatred on the beautiful woman's face in his memory. "She defied you, didn't she?" Jason scoffed and his mouth twisted into a bitter frown. "She looked at me with scorn and pity and told me to kill her or free her. No one had ever stood up to me, and it fascinated me. Part of me wishes she would have behaved like all the others, begged for eternal life. Perhaps then I would have looked past her." He heaved a long, harsh sigh before continuing. "A drawback of a long life is the opportunity for endless regrets." "You fell in love with her." I tried to envision the cold, calculating vampire softening for a human woman. "Oh yes, I fell in love with her. Jamila taught me humans were not animals for vampires to slaughter, to use, abuse, and discard. Through her eyes, I saw the inevitable end of the world if we didn't control the vampires. Together, we fought to make others understand, to change their ways. Some listened, many did not, and the war grew ever more brutal. In the end, I begged her to let me turn her for her own protection, but she refused to give up her humanity." "What happened?" I asked when he fell silent. I'd never heard this part of the legend. The historian in me wanted to know all the details, but in my heart, I knew Jamila hadn't died of old age. Where was Mariana in all of this? I didn't think for a second she would have appreciated Jason's enlightened views on humanity. After a long pause, Jason held out his hand. I took it, and his memory rose before me. The same dry heat as before closed in as an opulent stone chamber came into focus. Mariana, with her face set like thunder, screamed at Jason. "You will never replace me. I am your queen, now and for eternity." She tackled Jason with a sudden lunge, slicing her sharp nails across his face. He brought his hands up to defend himself. Shoving her away, Mariana pivoted. Pulling a massive stone plinth over on top of him, she disappeared down a hallway. The stone column pinned him to the floor. Jason groaned as he shoved it off him and scrambled to his feet. He sped after Mariana. The scene stalled for a moment. In the next heartbeat, I stood before an open doorway, filled with nothing but darkness. Jason's mind hovered there, reluctant to move on. I sensed what lay beyond. Mariana hadn't gone down that hallway for girl talk with Jamila. I didn't need to witness that. I tried to pull my hand away, but he didn't let go. The darkness cleared. Screams of pain and rage reverberated off the stone walls. Jamila lay on a bed draped with white linen and swaths of silk. Crimson pools of blood congealed on the floor, and Mariana stood over her corpse. "My king," Mariana said and bowed to him. I gasped as Jason freed me from his memory. Before I could say anything, he scooped me up in his arms and set off at a run. "Tell me how to get to the hospital. I have a date with my wife." Thanks so much for listening. As the shadows grow longer and Halloween draws closer, we will continue to unravel this tale of danger and desire. If you can't wait for tomorrow's chapter, you can follow me on my Ream subscription for free and unlock the full story right now. But if you prefer the suspense of waiting, join me again tomorrow for the next chapter. Until then, remember, the fate of humanity and a single heart hangs in the balance. Tomorrow, we venture further into the darkness.